They asked me for advice, and they said my advice was too expensive. My solution was too expensive. Tell you what, bankruptcy's a lot more
A
expensive.
lot more expensive. Yeah. Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Crafting a Business podcast. This is season 2. I'm Debbie Hatamali Ui, your founder and host for this exciting journey. Recently, I started coaching for small business owners through a digital solutions program, which is actually government funded. And I created this podcast because I want to connect with business owners from all walks of life and share insights. So last season was mostly focused on meeting crafters, but I've now expanded. So I want to include all types of businesses that I'm meeting through the coaching program. So if you're looking for relatable stories and advice that is actually actionable and inspiration from fellow entrepreneurs, you're in the right place. So let's get started. I wanted to introduce today's guest. This is Kelvin Mason. He's from Buy, Invest, Live. And it's so good to have you on the show. Hi, Kelvin.
Thanks, Deb. Very glad to be part.
Yeah, so funny story, hey? How we met was I was a weirdo walking into this new thing called BNI, which I got signed up for, and I didn't know what to expect. Kelvin was one of those friendly people, like he's been around the block, clearly, BNI member for however many X amount of years. And I was a bit scared, to be honest, walking into this room of, 30 people and not knowing anybody. But
Yep.
Kelvin was so nice. So thank you for being so nice.
Well, you're a new face. Got to go and talk to people. That's what we do. It's very easy to talk to people.
Oh, I mean, easy for you, right? But for me, like, you would think that I'm a bit of a people think I'm an extrovert, but I'm not. Like, I'm actually an introvert that's learned how to be extroverted. It was just a nice thing to know that someone had my back, and someone was willing to show me the ropes and like, I'll sit here and, here's your little pack. And anyway, so thank you. But why don't you tell me a little bit about Buy, Invest, Live and how it all kind of started, and also how you found BNI and how we actually came to meet? Yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we started with Buy, Invest, Live 10 years ago. I've been doing data capture. I've been doing it for almost 30 years in all different aspects. Got pigeonholed into a certain position and just couldn't get out of it and couldn't seem to, get ahead. Previously, I'd had my own business, etc., but had divorced. So, you sort of lose that opportunity. Sometimes opportunities just don't come along later on. There's a timing to it all. Yeah, so we reached a crossroads, and myself and my father-in-law were both looking at what to do next. There's 3 things that we really looked at: food, property, and finance. I can add a 4th because I've now met someone in the funeral business. So there's a 4th business they could go into that everyone needs at some stage. The widest range of people in any economy. And I'd already had a lot of experience buying and selling houses and investment properties. And so just made sense and continues to make sense.
And tell me about data capture. Like, pretend I know nothing about, your industry, which actually is not hard. I don't have to pretend. But what is data capture? Like, you've said that a couple of times. Is it capturing people's information, or you tell me a little bit about that?
Well, everyone now knows what data capture is because it's the QR codes, the PDF codes, etc. So that's what we originally did the printers and readers to look after that. The big markets we're always involved with is point of sale, which is supermarkets, and then we're doing libraries and all the medical centers and hospitals. So it is a very large, people. It's not something that people see all the time, but it's very large B2B kind of business. It was good.
So I relate that to, the digital world and the marketing world. And for me, that's called a lead capture, or when someone exchanges some information in order for me to contact them again, right? So, and I get, like, I don't take that lightly. If someone's like decided to give me that information, I'm not going to take advantage of that spamming and all that, like, and especially in this day and age, security is everything.
Oh, it's huge. Yeah.
Yeah. But tell me a little bit about
You mean just after the weekend?
Oh, yeah. So today is the 22nd of July, and I'm not sure exactly when this podcast is going to go live, but we just had a huge outage where CloudStrike, I think that was what they called, which is one of the service providers for Microsoft, just stopped. And
well,
so
1% of the world's computers stopped working efficiently. 1%. It's huge. And a lot of people aren't affected, but if you're in a larger organization, a lot of them were affected. You had to go and pay cash for things. You couldn't even use your cards. So pretty amazing.
I was pretty lucky. Like, my business is online, so it wasn't really affected. But my parents own a brick and mortar store, and their FPOS was intermittent, right? And how important is that in your industry, like the security? So how does something like that affect your business?
That part didn't, but it
Mm,
affected other people behind us, like banks and different other companies who we work with, because we use Microsoft products, but not CrowdStrike behind it. So therefore,
mm,
we weren't affected in that end, and we weren't affected on the front end, on the websites and etc. But security is always paramount with us. We regularly get people trying to send things through emails or text or WhatsApp, and we're trying to stop that.
mm,
And we encourage people just to send it through the secure portals because we can't take chances.
mm.
Email is the least secure product out there. We use bank statements, links, so that captures all the data. There's a lot of ways to be safe. And the number one thing is just education, because you still have
Totally.
to check all those phishing emails and all that kind of stuff. You get so many a day. It's crazy.
And I can imagine in your industry, like you need to know a lot about the person, right? And so you would hold a lot of that information, like things like bank statements and like,
Mm-hmm.
I would feel a bit naked, like, So what security measures do you put in place? And like things like the portal, tell me about that because not all businesses do that. It's a little bit
No,
scary, like who you're handing over your information
no, they
to.
don't. That's right. And so for 10 years, originally we would have kept information on local computers. Nothing's kept on a local computer at all. The computers are set up so that if you try and access a password over 3 or 4 or 5 times, whatever it is, just deletes. Everything deletes. There's
Mm,
nothing on there. So it's
mm,
all in secure portals. It's all with commerce grade encryption. Like as soon as we get information, even from accountants, they send tax file numbers still. Don't know why, but we immediately delete them,
right.
redact them, and then save them into the cloud. So good because you
Mm,
can get it from anywhere as well. And we don't have much paper. We
yeah.
almost don't print anything out except the questions you were going to ask me.
Yes. The
No,
questions which I
we just
pre-prepared.
we try not to print anything out. And like
Yeah.
the other day, I had to print out some mortgage documents for someone who's not that computer literate, and it's really unusual because we just don't normally do it.
Mm,
And then a lot of lenders are now electronic signatures. From a security point of view, it's much better because the ID is done properly. I mean, yeah, it's great. It's good. It's definitely getting better, but
mm.
there's going to be more challenges as we go along. I can see.
Yeah. And security is real topical right now. Like the amount of spam calls that I'm getting and,
Mm-hmm.
people pretending they're somebody and,
Mm.
like, do you find that that's an issue when you're dealing with potential customers? Like,
Oh yeah, we've had a couple. They ring us up. They said on the weekend they had a call. They've intercepted emails or something, and they had a call to say, "Yep, just deposit the $30,000 in the bank, and then everything will be finalised."
mm,
Well, it didn't make sense to her, luckily, but she rang up the agent and rang up myself, and we said, "Well, there's no way we would say that,"
mm,
and it's just definitely not true. Businesses are having invoices changed. We don't have that. Everything goes through a secure portal. So if it doesn't look right, we just ring people up.
yeah. And I think that's really
We're
important.
not getting the wrong information in the portal. We're just if something comes through an email, then we'll ring up and make sure that it's correct or not correct. Yeah.
And I think that's really important, having that extra second layer or third layer, fourth layer, whatever it is, right? And having
Mm,
that really important human interaction too. Everything's going digital these days, right? You think about AI and you think about all the
mm,
changes there,
mm,
but
mm.
having that extra manual touch point of someone literally looking at it and saying, hey, something's not quite right there,
Yeah.
right? I think that's a real difference that you seem to be doing as standard in your
Yep.
business, right? But
Well,
not
it
all
is
businesses
because
are. Yeah.
we have they have lender checklists and we have our own checklist as well. On top of that, if it doesn't look right, and most times there's more than one document that sort of adds up to the same thing. So if it doesn't look right in one way, you got to go and clarify it in some other way. It's just something you do. You don't even have to think about it now, but don't normally have to think about it because it just happens. It's just
Yeah.
the process we've got in place.
That's interesting. And tell me a little bit about the challenges that kind of have brought you here, like security challenges, tech challenges, all of that, like, CloudStrike going down. What are the challenges that have brought you to this day, brought you here, right? And made you the trusted brand that you are?
Starting back at the beginning, we started part time, which is always interesting because I was in IT and I thought, oh, I'll just, try and learn a bit about this before I make the big leap. Within the year, I had made the big leap anyway because it just didn't make any sense to be part time. You just can't do it. Like even now, some aspects of finance that I can do, but I don't do myself. I get someone else to do it.
Mm,
So you just collaborate with other brokers or other people. So that was the hardest part getting started. And then software wise, you have aggregator software from your aggregator. Usually that's never, exactly what you need. I used to write software before, so I'm, a bit critical of some of them. But I've used Trello, Monday, Sales Tracker, now I'm using Client Flow. And to me, you've got to change with what's going to give you the best outcome. You've got to make it easy for getting information in your own system, but also information back to the customer.
mm,
What do they want? Like the new stuff now, the new Client Flow software. Two things. One, I chose it because it did most of the job. I don't think any software does all the job. But two, there's a support at the other end of it. So if it didn't have the support at the other end, I wouldn't have even bothered considering it because I already know I don't want to write software.
Yeah.
I did that before with Monday and Trello. You have to actually update it yourself. Really, really important.
A lot of people that are listening to this podcast maybe are at the early stages of their business. And how did you kind of start in the beginning? Like you said, it was a year before you took the leap. But what made you take the leap in the beginning? And what did you put in place so that you could take the leap?
We had an income between my wife and I, so that helped. Otherwise, I would have had to refinance or do something else first. So you had enough cash to do it. And then the pressure wasn't on to actually make money from day one. The pressure was on to, make money soon, but also learn and make sure you do the right thing by yourself and the customers, borrowers, but also lenders. If you don't do the right thing, the lenders will come down on you. There's quality control. Just went through another audit the other day. Every 6 to 12 months, you have an audit. They look at so many files and say, yes, you're doing the right thing, or here's some other ways to do it.
And that's by like an independent firm, or who does the audit?
That was through the aggregator.
Okay.
But they have audit special people to do it inside. Yeah, it's a special team that does it for everyone. And part of it's automatic and part of it's manual.
Okay. And is that like a choice that you like? Do you opt in to have somebody?
Well, you do. You opt in when you join the aggregator.
Okay, right. So it's not. I guess what I'm saying is
No,
that
it's not a choice.
it's not a like a legislation, or it's not a you have to do this by the government. It's a choice that you try to kind of do as an extra service for your customers.
Well, you want to do it anyway because the rules have changed in the last 10 years. It used to be less rigid, I suppose is the right word. NCCP code came in since I've been doing it, and National Consumer Credit Protection. And the interesting thing is brokers are under NCCP, but banks are not. So banks only have one product, so therefore they're sales agents. Brokers we have 60 something lenders plus private funders as well. So we have a lot of funders, and the legislation was the banks wanted to push through was to make it difficult for us, but also for customers as well, because now there's much more restrictions and you can't use logic, you can't use common sense. It's got to fit in with the lender policies. So there's a lot of research goes into finding the right lender sometimes. The ones that have more open to common sense, I suppose is the right word.
But that's wild to me. Like wild in that, you've obviously wanted to do the right thing by your clients, but there are other people like mortgage brokers, and we get this in the digital space all the time, right? I call them like the rogue cowboy, like somebody that doesn't like there's no rule that says you have to do this, but you should, So I find it really interesting that there are other, your competition. It's like they're playing by different rules.
They can be, absolutely. Yeah, so NCCP is good in one respect because in the end, the customer gets an overview of exactly what you're trying to do for them, what the current state is, what you're doing for them, and what the outcome was going to be. And here's your choices. Sometimes, many times, there's a clear choice. Other times, there's not. Sometimes there's only one choice, just because of the nature of what people are trying to do.
That's interesting. So, and we've kind of talked a little bit about the challenges. There's been some tech challenges, there's been some software challenges, but also, the NCC, whatever that was, again, I don't know, NCCP challenge, like all of that, right?
Yeah.
But I want to know about the success stories. Like, tell me about, is there one particular story that, I know there's probably about a million, but if you had to choose one, like what is the success story that really like gives you the fuzzies, like that makes you continue on to do what you continue to do this, right? Yeah. Tell me about that.
There's a few, but first one is been working with a bankruptcy and insolvency specialist who now happens to work in the same office as me. It's just the way it works, good friends. And we also met through BNI as well. So there you go. One of the clients he had and he's trying to help was 67 and 83 or something. Not a simple solution to find. And they had their business being run by someone else and they ran it into the ground and really, really difficultly screwed it up. It's a funny story because I actually spoke to them independently of the bankruptcy specialist some years before, and they asked me for advice, and they said my advice was too expensive. My solution was too expensive. Tell you what, bankruptcy's a lot more expensive.
A lot more expensive. Yeah. Anyway. Isn't that so funny? That reminds me of that quote when it's like, if you want something done, like you could not pay somebody and then have to do it a million times. What's that saying? Like it's really expensive not to get a professional in.
Absolutely. No, it's the only way. And So what the ATO, they had an ATO debt, of course, everyone does when they have going bankrupt. The ATO want to take everything. So the 83-year-old and the daughter would have ended up with nothing. So the bankruptcy specialist, Darren, went and negotiated and made sure they didn't lose everything. And we had enough money for them to go and buy a house. So,
Wow.
they got 15 years to pay it off and all that kind of stuff. But the rest, what they had to borrow, was all being, a couple of years down the track now. So it's fantastic.
Mm,
Otherwise, it would have been, I don't know what they would have been. There's no house, no nothing.
yeah.
And the other
That's
one was someone else I know. I won't do too many identifying features, but
mm.
they had a credit score of 400 and something. I've had them before with minus, but this one's 400. And the thing
Is
is,
400 like average? Like again,
no, it
because
should
I
be
don't know English.
650 as a minimum, should normally.
650.
Yeah, if
Oh,
lenders don't want to do anything under 650 normally.
I need to
For,
go and Google what my thing is.
yeah. I can help you with that.
Okay, please.
So anytime we do any kind of lending, we always do a credit check. We get a
Okay.
privacy sign, they do a credit check, because if you don't do a credit check, you don't know what the lender's going to see. Now, sometimes a person doesn't know what's on there,
Yeah.
and or something's been put on there that's incorrect. So we have to get it removed. Again, we send referrals to people who do credit repair. Anyway, back to the story
Yeah.
with for 480, I think it was. And but the interesting part about it was there was no late payments, no nothing.
Mm.
So why wouldn't they get credit? Well,
Mm.
because they've applied for credit many, many times. I think it was something like 35 times,
Mm.
and hadn't taken it up or hadn't been approved. And yeah, it didn't really make sense. But anyway, there's mainstream or second tier lender who had no trouble whatsoever, because they don't even look at the credit score at all. They
Mhm.
just look at the history. But that's the kind of thing that we excel at, because we don't start off with, we want the big four banks. We start off with, what's the interest rate? What can we do? What's the best policies? Or what do we have to show the lender to actually get you the best rate? And then we go forward from there. So yeah, it's good. Just completely changed. It's a couple of years down the track again, and they got a house. Otherwise, now it's been 2 years down the track. The property prices have gone up phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, just people are missing out. So if they go to a lender, go to someone and say, or a bank, even a broker, and they say we can't do it. The problem is, if they don't get in, they
It's
can't save
too
enough money to
much.
get back into the market later on.
And that's really interesting you tell that story. Like I'm a bit of an ostrich in what's that saying? Head in the sand,
Hmm.
ostrich in the sand. Yeah.
Ostrich, yeah.
So which is why I don't know my credit score. So don't judge me.
Americans are big on credit scores. We don't do it so much, but we do have to check it every now and then.
Yeah. So then how do you feel? Like I know that I feel a bit scared to hand over that information to somebody. It's like peeping on the hood or whatever that saying. It's like, I feel a bit naked like handing over that information to you, right? So like how do you help that person not feel so naked?
I
You know?
know it's definitely a lot of responsibility, because you've got to be really careful what you know. And we've had different people wanting us to, they've started the process and change for whatever reason. They say you have to delete all your information. The problem is, under legislation, you have to hold things for 7 years, and not on our computers, but in the system. So the key thing is just rapport and chatting long enough for someone to understand that you know what they're looking for. This is the process, and going forward, this is what you're looking for as an outcome. So let's go forward. I mean, they
Mm,
are ringing. We've got a credit license or an ACL, which I'm about to get hold of. So you're licensed under ASIC. You have to do the right thing. You have
mm,
the audits from different people. So yeah, we have PI insurance. We got lots of costs.
mm. But I think there's the underlying element in all of that is the trust, right? Like
Costs, yeah,
I
of
wouldn't
course.
just give it to anybody,
Mm,
So, and if I'm going to get into a relationship with somebody that's going to know my bank account balance, my credit
mm,
score, how much credit I have, like, all of that like scary stuff.
mm.
I want to make sure that that person, like, I can trust them, right? So, and I think that's really important. Like it just goes back to, people buy from people. Like I always refer
Yeah,
to this.
I
People
think
buy from people and like how do you build that trust with somebody that hasn't met you before? Like,
true.
so it's more about like when you're in person, like one to one,
Mm,
having a conversation, it's easy. Like not easy,
mm.
but someone has to trust you. But what is the
Well,
difference?
that's the body language and everything, and the non-verbals. That's right. No, it's just I don't think about it anymore at all, because I know the information. The most frustrating part, really, about the job is you try and talk to people and you can help people, and then they don't call you back. You say, "But I know I can help you."
Mm,
So, if you say you're a mortgage broker, and what you do and some of the specialities I work in, at anywhere, just put random strangers, and they'll still ask you questions, and they'll give you all the personal information.
Interesting.
and
That's
I, and I
it's
think
like
I don't
a
think anything
it's
of
like
it
a
anymore because that's
yeah,
what I do for a living.
yeah.
So everything we do. What was the other day? I think it was to do with a pre-approval from a buyer's agent, and the customer said, "Well, what information you're going to share with the buyer's agent?" I said, "Well, nothing. I'm going to share it with you." So I got the
Mm,
lead from them, but I don't share any information with them.
mm.
So if they ask me about whether you can go ahead, I can say yes. That's all I can do. They're giving me a guide and everything else. I'll give you all the information. You have to go back to them.
And that's really interesting. Like for you, it seems like it's standard,
It's just
it's
standard. Yeah.
standard. It's just the way that you operate, and you get that level of trust that your information is
Mm,
not going to go anywhere. But
mm,
I know that there are some, what did I say before? Rogue cowboys
mm, mm.
flinging information everywhere, and
Yeah.
that just gives us, we're doing a lot to build the trust, and then the trust is now gone, because
Mm.
of rogue people that are out there. So I
Yeah,
guess
and that affects the industry as well.
the industry, yeah.
Mm,
I guess that's what I'm asking. Like, what are you doing to stay up to date with everything that's changing, but also to make sure that the customer is first and you're building that trust so that that customer or that client, whatever you want to call them, that person on the other end
mm,
that feels naked, like me, right,
mm.
is comfortable enough handing over that information to you.
That usually comes from what I call my 10-minute process, because really, whenever you're being asked something, we have to go through a process. Like, I don't see many people like face to face because
Mm,
it's not the nature of broking anymore. But
mm,
we can, but we just don't. But even if someone asks for that and you say, well, anyway, here's my 10-minute process. You have to do this first. I'm going to ask for some documents, get privacy signed, a few other things, and then we'll go from there, because at least I have to know what it is you're looking for and if there's any chance to help you. Yeah.
mm,
Lots of times there is, because what we want to give someone at the end of a 10-minute process is, yes, we can help you. Here's the options, or no, we can't help you right now. This is the option to take now. And this is when we're going to come back together and we can do it and have a look at it again.
mm. That's really interesting because when I bought my first house, I didn't have anybody tell me they have a 10-minute process. Literally, it was
Yeah.
like you have two options,
Mm.
is this big bank or this big bank because you're a first home owner, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
And that's scary. Like,
Mm.
that no one took the time to spend 10 minutes with me, right? To
Yeah.
let me understand, first of all, and kind of say, like, hold my hand a little bit,
Mm.
right?
Well, the big banks have shot themselves in the foot by giving people wrong information, because 70% of the loans approximately goes through brokers. Where was it the other day? I was up at Cessnock somewhere, I don't know, somewhere up the Hunter Valley, and they were talking about, oh yeah, that's a branch across the street just closed again. And there's a couple of other branches around, but more and more branches are closing all the time. Long time ago, I was involved with the CBC Bank. And it got bought out by the National, so now it's the NAB.
Okay.
But even then, that's back in the 80s, I could see it wasn't going to last. It
Hmm.
just, the amount of cost it costs, like, you do this stuff behind the scenes and you have to cost how much money costs to keep money, cash in your till. You have to, the staffing and I used to do relief staff, so I was expensive. If I had to travel around somewhere and do relief stuff, it was fun for me, but it was expensive for the branch. So how
Hmm.
much money were they making? Yeah, well, they needed a few big people in the country to keep the branch alive.
Mm. It's
Mm.
interesting. Everything is ever changing, hey? Everything is ever
Mm.
changing. And the us as business owners, whether you're a mortgage broker or I don't know, your brick and mortar store, whatever it is, like
Mm.
everything needs to change. Like I know in digital marketing, to the minute, if something changes, right?
Yep.
Something in the algorithm, AI does something changes, and all of a sudden something doesn't work. So say for
Mm.
example, if I've been doing images for the last 10 weeks and then all of a sudden, oh no, Facebook
Mm.
doesn't like images anymore, I've got to change it, right?
Yep. Yep.
So it's really interesting that you say like that applies to all business, and having that
Does.
mentality about changing
Yeah.
something and being flexible is, I think, the essence of entrepreneurship and, and being in business. So
Yeah. Flexible. We can't be flexible with bank policies, but can be creative to make sure
love that.
they find the right ones.
Yes.
Always looking. Like, people say all the time, oh, what do you mean you do LODOC? LODOC loans, you don't have financials? Oh, they've gone out the door a long time ago. Oh, do they? I do a couple of every week. So no, one of the ones at the moment is where people have multiple properties, but they're in entities, a company or a trust. Well, some of the lenders, not the big ones, but the second tier lenders, you can get an accountant letter to say they're all profitable. Therefore, don't have to include any debts from there in a new lending. It's basically unlimited borrowing if you set it up properly.
Right.
So yeah, and then the other one, big one at the moment, I'm hopefully finalising in 4 weeks, is shared equity. So you borrow 80%, and someone else, an investor, puts in the other 20%. And so you're sharing the potential growth, capital growth of the property, but you're also getting started. And
Mm.
if you don't get started, you don't get started. You know,
Mm.
in the last, I bought where I am now in 2011. So 2011, 2014, 13 years, well and truly tripled. How can I don't think I've earned that much money. so, so,
I'm the same. I bought in an area. People actually told me, like, are you sure you want to live? I live in Kellyville, which has completely changed. We didn't have, we was farmland here
yeah,
8 years ago when we moved in. But people were like, are you sure? It's a bit far. Like, are you sure you want to live there? And I'm like, now we have an Aldi up the road. And,
yeah,
I walk my kids to school, like, takes me 2 minutes. Anyway,
yeah,
I,
yeah, yeah.
I didn't,
Same.
yeah. And that's like something I think that you as a mortgage broker is really important in that. Like you're not obviously as a real estate agent or selling the actual property,
Yeah,
right? But you're doing everything else to make that happen, like outside of it. So it's a
yeah.
really important and, hard role
Yeah,
to
it's
do. Yeah.
not an easy job. A lot of, like I said, we've talked about a lot of government regulations, a lot of legislation and things you've got to do, tick the boxes.
Yeah.
It's private information.
Yeah.
You can't.
It's a
And
lot though.
then there's a lot of time. People want things
Yeah.
in a hurry. Done a couple this week where it's bridging loans, but they're low doc bridging loans. So again, and the larger numbers, larger purchase price. So they've required, different lenders to make sure it happens.
Yeah. Wow. See, all of this is like, it's like you're speaking a different language. Like,
It does sound like it sometimes.
Yeah, and I that happens to me when I talk about digital, and like you can see that people like what, like, are you
Mm,
speaking Chinese? Anyway,
mm,
what are the key pieces of advice? So, say someone comes to you and they're like completely new to this, first homeowner, never bought a property before, never borrowed money before,
mm.
and with all the interest rates and all that happening, cost of living, all of that. What is the top tip? What is the top tip that you give them? If you only had 10 seconds to spend with them, what would you tell them?
First of all, they don't know anything unless they talk to a broker and give us all their information. And number two is give me all your information
Mm,
because we need to know more than a priest or someone else because we need to know everything, warts and all, and then we can figure out lots of ways to help someone get in. And like I was
love that.
saying, it's not if they can do it now. Sometimes they can't do it now. Sometimes you've got family guarantees, so they need no deposit. Other times they can't. Like, so, okay, what's the best way for you? Other times they've got to buy property as an investor rather than buy their own home
Mm.
because at least they get started.
It's get started,
Don't,
yeah.
don't, don't wait.
Don't
You,
wait. Don't
you've
wait.
got to
Yeah.
buy something, but it doesn't have to be in the area you want to live in. Some
Mm,
people have got some really great rents. So why would you want to change? You
mm.
don't.
And I love what you said. I need to know more than your priest.
That's true
So,
because there's no
yeah.
point hiding anything because it'll come out in the paperwork.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Totally.
we have ways of making you talk.
It sounds a little
Oh,
bit
yeah.
scary, Kelvin.
No, we
But I guess that's part
have
of
to
your
know
role.
everything.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Have to.
the thing that people forget is they don't pay us.
Yeah.
So we have to trust people as well. And
Yeah.
if we don't trust someone, we just say we can't help you. We have to trust them, yes, otherwise, you get clawed back and 50% of what you made goes out the
Mm.
window again. It's not good.
Interesting. Is there any kind of tools or, what's your trusted source of information? Like, is there I don't know, Mortgage Brokers Australia magazine that you read or something? I don't know. Is there something where you are always up to date on the changes there? And what is it? And do you have a tip for other business owners that are getting into this space too?
Yeah, for us, it's always bank and lender credit policies come out all the time. Every couple of days, there's something coming out. We have broker institutions as well. We have products like Brokerpedia and stuff where it's a cost, but it's worthwhile cost because there's a lot of information there. That includes, discharge and also other heaps of different things. Multiple magazines, but that's just for the lender policies. The main thing is most brokers don't feel like they're competing with someone else. So
Mm.
we collaborate and we talk to each other.
Love
So,
that.
if someone doesn't know something, they'll put it in the chat and say, hey, what can we do? Very
And
often.
how do people reach you? How do people contact you? How do they, if they want to chat about, I don't know, first homers and have some stupid question that, like me, how do they talk to you? And do you have yeah, how do they talk to you? That's the
Yeah,
question.
well, there's no stupid questions because, like I was saying, if you don't know, you don't know. And so, how are you expected to know unless you've had the same 10 years experience as I had? You don't.
Mm,
10 years ago, even though I'd done finance, I wouldn't have known anything like I know now.
mm,
So, we've got a website. we've got social media like Facebook, Instagram, a few other different things we're trying to set up with you.
Yep.
And LinkedIn, I do a lot of work on LinkedIn. So a lot of leads come through there for business owners. From there, we're getting either emails or phone calls.
Mm,
Sometimes he'll book an appointment, makes it easy because then everyone knows, we can give you a call after hours or the
mm,
like.
mm,
That's it. Start from there. And then really it's a gauge as to whether you can do something now. And if it is now, we send you the privacy, get the credit all checked.
mm,
And then once we're happy to go, then it's a fairly quick process once people know.
mm. I love
If
what you said
someone's this
about,
morning said, ready
yeah,
to go, looked at it, yep, good. We'll send you the paperwork. You send it back to us. We'll have it done today and
yeah, wow,
lodged.
I love that.
And
Well, I think
if
it's
you're with
more
some of the
about,
lenders, they can have it back tomorrow with
yeah,
approval.
yeah,
Other
yeah.
lenders, bit longer.
Yeah, okay. I think it's you having that, 10 years or 20 years of knowledge that you know what the processes are. So then it makes that process quicker, especially someone like me who's never navigated it, like I
Yeah,
think
it's
the bottom line is have a chat, right? Like let's just
just
have a
have a chat.
chat.
Don't try and figure out anything. Just
Yeah.
have a chat.
Yeah.
And then it's not me.
Yeah.
I'm not doing all the hard work all the time. It's the team's doing that, so it
Mm.
makes it a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure.
And they build up their own expertise as well.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to start a new tradition here, and it's not, I've stolen this from somebody else, but I want to start almost like a question round robin, right? So I'm going to start a question where I leave a question for you, and then you leave a question for the next guest, right? So, and again, it's not a new idea, but I would find this interesting what question you're going to leave for somebody else that you've never met before. But my question to you is, what is your non-negotiable in your business? So is there something that you have to do like every week or every month that you actually like carve time out and make time to do? So for some people, it's like a gym session, or some
Mm,
people need to go fishing, or some people like me, I need to look at my data,
mm.
right? My social media data and see what's working. Like, what is it for you?
I'm always looking at the numbers. It's not so much the numbers for what we're doing as a business, but more about what clients we've taken on and what we're doing. So we have folders and all the different software and the notes. That's the key thing. Just making sure that they're being looked at in a timely basis because things do sometimes get busy. Like June recently was ridiculous. And our team here had to stay on the phone sometimes for the whole day trying to get things done.
Wow.
So, when we take it on something on, it's responsibility. Non-negotiables, the key thing is never stop learning. I just had to move my living room and foyer and everything else on the weekend for painting this week. I have a lot of books, so there's a lot of work and other knickknacks and stuff, but there's a lot of work moving stuff around. And I was thinking about it when you asked me that question before to sort of have a think about in the end, it's you might read sales books or marketing books or some other motivational books, but sometimes that's not what you need. You actually just need creativity.
Mm,
So the idea is just to read any kind of book that's fascinating and interesting, and then put it down. If it's not, go
mm,
find another one.
mm,
Because the more you can think outside the square, and the more you're relatable to someone else, the one you're gonna have more fun,
mm,
and two you're gonna be more relatable, I suppose. Yeah.
mm. Yeah. And what's your question for the next guest?
I wish I had one. I'm thinking.
What is it when you meet a business owner and you've never met them before, they're in a completely different field to you, what do you normally ask? Like, is it just the interest? Like what kind of questions would you ask to get to know them?
Well, normally, yeah, no, actually, normally I ask, what do you do? And that's pretty simple. They tell me what they're doing, and I ask more questions to try and figure out. Like they might say, I'm trying to think of an example, which is eluding me at the moment, but it might be a generic answer, and you say, well, what is that? What do you do there? Like, what is it you do? Because
Mm,
it's interesting, and so many times you find really interesting niche markets of people I've never even heard of.
mm,
And the other question I always ask is, well, why'd you get into it?
mm,
How did you like what did you start with when you left school and what got you to that spot? Because I have the same thing. I went to a fitter and machinist, the BHP, banking, and then I did PCs and Apple Macs.
mm,
I did programming, I did sales, I did heaps of other things, and then you suddenly end up in barcode scanning, and then you end up in finance. Like it's a skill, the same skills, lots of times that get you into one to the other, and people forget it doesn't matter about the industry. more about the kind of skills and the kind of, because I remember writing a resume, which I still have all my old resumes, and you think, what's the same thing that says in there? It's the same thing. It just says, think outside the square, looking for something else, always researching. It doesn't change. So just the same.
That's a really good question. I'm going to ask that question. What did you study in school, or what did you think you'd become? And what is the path that you've ended up where you are now?
Yeah.
I think that's a really good question. Like, I'm a perfect example of that. Social media and digital marketing didn't exist
No, of course.
when
No.
I finished high school, back in 2004, which I think I'm showing my age. But like, it didn't exist, right? So
Yeah.
like, phones weren't a thing and social media wasn't a thing. So here I am. Still, the essence of it is I've always kind of been a connector, right? A community builder, connector, sharing what I learned. So it's kind of
Yeah.
natural that I kind of fell into this. So
And that's exactly what you said. It's not about the actual industry you're in, because even people now are going to get to the end of their life and the industries, again, like ours, didn't exist before. It's only going to get faster.
well, thank you so much, Kelvin. We've reached the end of our time in our podcast. I've really enjoyed getting to know you. I mean, we've met a couple of times, and I see you every week at BNI, but this has been really good to get to know your thought process and your differences and how your brain works. And I love that.
If you see my office, you'll see why how my brain works.
Oh, I have to
Things
come. I
everywhere.
definitely have to come and visit you. I might just can
Come
I
visit
just
the new
invite myself?
office.
Yes. And I'll just say this is my corner.
Yeah, plenty of
But
room.
thank you so much for
All right,
spending
thanks,
the
Deb.
time with me. Yeah, appreciate it. And I'm going to have Kelvin's contact details and where you can contact him. And if you have any questions, like you said, just have a chat. Hey,
Yep.
let's just have a chat. Hopefully, I'm willing to bet 90% sure, 99% sure that he can probably help you. So
I know
feel free
exactly
to
where
reach
people
out.
are at. That's the key thing.
Yeah,
Whether
yeah,
if you can help 85, 90% of people now, great. The
exactly.
rest, got to give them a direction.
Exactly.
Everyone needs a house.
Yes, that too. That should be the
It's not
opening.
finance. It's just
Yeah,
putting people into houses and investment
yeah,
properties.
exactly. Yeah. But thank you so much for spending the time with me.
Thanks, Deb.
Thanks.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. I hope you enjoyed that episode of the Crafting a Business podcast. That was our first episode, our first real episode, with Kelvin from Buy, Invest, Live. So I kind of mentioned to you guys that I started coaching for a government-funded program. If you're interested in this program, it's a $45 fee to join, and that's just an admin fee. But then you get 4 hours of one-on-one time with me at no cost. It's on the government, right? So it's a government grant that is available to all small business owners. If you're based in New South Wales, I can coach you. But if you're not, there is a whole list of other coaches that can help you, and I can send you a link to that. So it's $45 for the New South Wales people as an admin cost to join. And again, all you need is just an ABN, right? So if you're in the really beginning stages of a business, it's completely fine for you to join the program. There is also a light version of the program. So basically it means there's a whole lot of webinars, and I just did one this morning actually, where I had 100 people on just learning about social media and social media strategy. There's a whole lot of webinars on all different subjects to do with digital marketing, and that's completely free to join. So if you'd like to join, please send us an email at ask@onlythesweetstuff.com.au, and we'll get a link to you to either join the program or join the light program, which is where the webinars are at. But I really hope you enjoyed this episode. And as I mentioned to you guys before, this season 2 is like an evolution, right? It's really changed. We will still talk to crafters. We will still talk about creativity and creating and all of that. But I really wanted to take the business lens because I wanted to learn from other businesses, right? In the same way that they want to learn from me, digital marketing, I want to learn about other businesses because there's so much that's out there and we can learn from each other's experiences. So yes, I hope you enjoyed that episode. See you at the next one. Thanks. Bye.